99% of entrepreneurs will never scale their business to the level they want. They will never achieve the financial freedom they set out to achieve. And honestly, they are not to blame because no one ever told them what are the right skills they need to win in business. As a performance coach to elite 6 and 7-figure entrepreneurs, I keep seeing the same recurring pattern. Those that approach business in a holistic and systematic way always end up winning. 99% of people never do. So this video is about how can you leapfrog your peers and make years worth of progress in just a few weeks by focusing on what matters most. And the first idea that I want to share with you today is that business is hard for a very specific reason. And that is that in order to make something work consistently at scale, we need to try a zillion different variations of that thing. We need to find a zillion variations of the right funnel, of the right offer, of the right sales message, of the right sales process, of the right fulfillment. There's a zillion different ways in which we have to master every step if we want to consistently make money at scale. And building that systematically over time requires a lot of mental power. It requires a lot of time, requires a lot of focus, requires knowing how to prioritize what really matters, to not get distracted, not get doubtful. And all of these things depend on performance skills, depend on a very specific subset of skills that business skills do not teach, but make all the difference. And this is why I always say that the highest performing always wins. Average entrepreneurs can make some businesses work sometimes under some circumstances, but elite performers can make any business work under any circumstance quick. And the difference is never IQ or hard work, it's how they can consistently deploy high levels of focus on high leverage tasks consistently until they figure out every single step of their business. And I want to prove it to you with what I call the success matrix. This is something we teach our clients for them to understand what is the impact that training their performance actually has in their business. Because when they start working with us, they believe what everybody else believes. And it's the fact that business skills is all that matters in business. In other words, knowing how to market, how to sell, and how to fulfill is enough in order to win a business. As if being the best marketer or the best sales guy or the best operations fulfillment product guy would be enough in order to win in business. And don't get me wrong, this is good enough to get started. This is enough to get you to, let's say, 6 figures. But at some point, you stall out. Because there's these things called performance skills. And performance skills has to do with the discipline, has to do with focus, has to do with prioritization, has to do with stress management, has to do with attention management. In essence, it's everything that allows you to shine in business. Is the types of skills that allow you to market, sell, and fulfill at the highest level. If you don't train yourself to be disciplined, to be focused, to prioritize the right and important, to always stay calm under stress, to manage your attention in a way that leads to breakthrough, to make good strategic decision-making even under extreme pressure, then it doesn't really matter how much you sell or how much better you become at the marketing, do you? Let's say, for instance, that you are extremely good at, let's say, business skills, right? So let's say that you are an 8 out of 10, right? On the business skills axis, you are an 8 out of 10. But it turns out that you are only a 2 out of 10 in performance skills. So your success is very low. It is limited. Out of 100% success that we have here, you only have about 16% success. Why? Because the performance skills are severely limiting your ability to shine across the board. And what most people would do is they would say, you know what? I'm still not good enough in marketing. I'm still not good enough in copywriting. I need another sales course. I need another marketing course. I need to hire another business coach to change my emails, to change my whatever. any bullshit you may think. Imagine that you do that. If you really devote all of your attention to master business to the best of your ability, at most, you will become about 20% better. That's it. Not much more. Because you will always be limited by your performance skills, which are the things that are allowing you to shine as a marketer, to shine as a sales guy, to shine as a product guy, right? See, it's much more intelligent to work on the discipline, focus, and prioritization skills, which they can be learned very quickly. We teach them in about 6 weeks, and they have a huge impact. Because let's say that you put the same level of effort in mastering this last 20% of business skills and being an absolute guru with the same level of effort, because there's this thing called the law of diminishing returns. In essence, 1 unit of effort put here is yielding 10 times less than something put than a unit of effort on a skill you still haven't started to learn. The first 100 hours of any skills are always the most important. If you decide to master this, let's say that you decide to double your performance skills, and automatically you can literally become twice as successful just by focusing on what matters most, which truly is discipline, focus, prioritization, stress management, attention management, flow states, all of those things that constitute performance skills. So if right now you are grading yourself as at 3 out of 10 in performance, what would happen if you would take yourself to 10 out of 10 performance most days? What would happen if you suddenly became able, with the same level of business skills, to fucking destroy your competition? What would happen? Well, your success will multiply by 5. You will become 5 times more successful. This is exactly what we do at Selfmastered. So people come to us very good at their businesses, but they cannot focus, they cannot execute, they cannot be disciplined. As soon as we unlock it, they become crazy successful. Same IQ, same work ethic, same offer, same sales systems, same everything. The only thing that changes is their ability to focus, execute, and perform. And I have boiled down this literally to a science, to the point that I've realized there's a very specific kind of transformation path that most of our clients go through when they join at about low 6 figures and they get to 7 figures quickly, right? How this typically happens is that, let's say that we want to get to 100K a month. Okay? That is the goal. And we are here. Typically, we work with people at the 10K a month level, let's say we're here. Sometimes earlier than that. Let's say 8K a month. But let's say this is the path, right? What typically happens here is that at this level, they have the offer, they have the marketing, and they have the sales process. None of these are perfect, of course, but they are already good enough to have a 10K business, right? To be a 7-figure businessman. What typically happens first is that they start understanding, and this is kind of one of the first skills they learn, how to be disciplined. And this is huge, because what I want them always to achieve is that they can sustain, and this is one of the KPIs that I use, 3 ring fence sessions a day, 5 times a week. That is about 15 hours a week of productive time. Most entrepreneurs do not have this. Most entrepreneurs are spending 2 to 3 hours productive work, and the rest is wasted. The goal is to make them spend between 4 and 6 hours every single day. That, to me, is already the first step that will help them achieve. And the KPI that I look for is 3 ring fence sessions every single day. A ring fence session, if you've been following the channel, is my method for having a 90-minute work session with one very clear objective in which we work against the timer with that one very clear task, right? So in essence, this is 5 hours a day of work, 25 hours a week. That is the first thing that I typically see them mastering. And once they do this, they typically jump to about 25K. This is typically what happens once they consistently put in 3 ring-fence sessions with full focus every single day. Then the next thing we help them is to create a strategy, in essence, to find what is the best way of doing their offer, their marketing, their sales, and only do that. Only focus on this. Only do one thing and then iterate forever. The goal is that every week they keep getting better at one thing and one thing only, because that's the only thing they need to get to 100K a month. They don't need 4 different channels. They don't need 4 different offers. They don't need 4 different sales processes. No, they need one offer, one channel, one sales process, and a very clear goal, which is 7 things. Once they start nailing this, that's when magic really happens. They tend to jump to about 55K a month on average. We're talking about agencies on typically, because they know what to do. They're being very disciplined when doing it, and they're disciplined and focused. And now they're saying no to everything else. That is supremely important. Now, what tends to happen at this point is that they need to understand, and this is very important, the next step has to do with what I call awareness. You can also call it purpose. Why is this important? Because typically, when you become successful, which means when you make more money, it is very easy to get distracted. This is what some people call the lady in the red dress. When you go from 10K to 55K in 2 to 3 months, you suddenly have a lot more money coming in, and you have a lot of more possibilities to deploy that money. Either you can buy yourself something, you can go travel, you can hire more people, you can try different marketing channels, you can do all sorts of things, and most of those things do not matter. Because the only thing that matters is to master this, the thing that we committed on becoming, the thing that we committed on mastering. So at this point, this has to do with shaping the awareness to say no to everything else. This is very simple, but it's kind of hard to do. And then typically the last level has to do with self-belief. Why is that? Because at some point, and typically this happens at this level, you typically hit the limits of what you believe is possible and what are available to you. You start believing that this is just a ruse, that you don't really deserve this success, that you got lucky, that, for whatever reason, you got a breakthrough, but you cannot sustain it, and you end up self-sabotaging. So here, what we have to do is a consistent programming to trigger that self-belief. And there's one very important mindset shift that I didn't know I was going to discuss in this video, but I will, because it is very relevant. And it is the shift from what I call peak to elite performance, right? Is once you understand that what is preventing you from doing 100K a month is just yourself, is getting yourself in your own way, because you have an offer, you're disciplined, you're focused, you're consistently prioritizing based on leverage, you are aware of everything that you could be doing, but you decide on not doing. The only thing that matters there is that you stay the course. The only person that can take you out of your course is yourself, is your mind, is your willingness to not believe that you actually deserve it. And this typically happens because entrepreneurs start caring too much. And that is a core performance pitfall. When you care too much about the outcome, when you obsess too much about 100K a month, when you obsess about it, you don't get it, because you always end up self-sabotaging. You start finding ways in which this is not going to work for you. You start realizing that this may be something that at some point will prevent you from getting that thing. But nothing could be further from the truth, because peak performance is impersonal. Peak performance is just a matter of consistently doing the things that need to be done in order to get the results we want to get. There's no magic behind it. Anyone can do that. But it all hinges on the ability of letting go, of stop caring that much, of just surrendering to the flow of life, surrendering to the things that you're doing in your business that have already worked, from taking you to 100K to, let's say, 70K. Right? So this is a typical roadmap that I see in, I would say, most of our clients. When they start 10K a month, they want to get to 100K a month. The first thing they do is they get discipline. That is the most important thing. So no distractions, no time wasters, not wasting surfing the web time, TikTok, all that has to go. Then identifying the high leverage strategy, the thing that absolutely matters most to them, we help them with this. What is the marketing channel? What is the sales process? What is the offer that is going to scale to 100K a month? And then awareness and purpose. I could have called it motivation. All right. So how can we sustain motivation towards the goal without getting distracted, without falling for the trap of buying things we don't need and doing stuff that does not align with the goal? That is the moment in which we need to be careful. And finally, self-belief. How can we re-architect our minds to consistently believe we deserve it, so we don't get distracted, so we do not self-sabotage, so we stop caring that much about the outcome, so we can finally get the outcome, right? So this is a core example of what I mean when I say that you can get to 6 figures without performance, but you will never get to 100K a month without the peak performance. It's impossible. And if you talk to any 7-figure entrepreneurs, we have a lot in our community, they always say the same thing. It's never about business. It's always about themselves. It's about how they manage themselves, how they make decisions, how they manage their emotions, how they think clearly, how they keep a quiet mind, how they let go and surrender to their business so they can truly scale super quickly, right? This is something 99% of entrepreneurs never learn. And now you have just learned it. So what can you do with this? Well, obviously you have to train your performance skills, and you have to do it ideally in a scientific manner. You know where to find us if you want our help. But in any case, I would start looking at discipline, leverage, awareness, self-belief, flow states, stress management, energy management, systems thinking, all of those performance skills if you want to get to 100K a month. One more course, another sales process, one more mastermind will not change the game for you. What is going to change the game for you is mastering the right performance skills you need to become the entrepreneur you're capable of becoming. If you want to go deeper into this topic, check this video here that will go 1 or 2 levels deeper into how performance skills will affect your business outcomes. See you in the next video.